welcome back to another video. Today's video is about Forever Night. Now my plan originally was to do all Christmas videos for the month of December, but I wanted to talk about this, so I decided since the topic isn't very Christmassy, I'd stand next to my Christmas tree. I've had this up since like the first week of November. Don't judge me. So today, we're going to be talking about the show Forever Night. Now, I did do a video, I believe in October, talking about vampire detective cop shows and how they're amazing and my favorite. Forever Night was on that list. But today I'm going to talk about specifically Forever Night and how it came to be and all the drama that ensued that I didn't even know existed until I did that last video. So, let's get into it. Forever Night didn't start as a TV show. It was originally a movie. Nick Knight came out in 1989. I thought it was just a TV movie. After doing a little bit of research, it was actually the pilot to the show, but it wasn't picked up at the time, so they just made it a standalone TV movie. The cast includes Nick Knight, played by Rick Springfield, Dr. Jack Bridington, played by Robert Harper, Don Skanke, played by John Kapelos, LaCroix, played by Michael Nader, and a main character for the first 2 episodes of the show and this movie, who doesn't really show up again, is Dr. Alice, played by Laura Johnson. The first 2 episodes of the show Forever Night share the same script as the movie Nick Knight. Now knowing that Nick Knight was supposed to be the original pilot for the show, I can understand why they just decided to keep the pilot script and change cast. Now, obviously, it is not an exact copy. There are slight changes, but it's basically the exact same script. The main story of Nick Knight is that Nicholas was turned into a vampire a very long time ago and has done things he is not proud of. But this takes place in modern day when he's trying to fight his urges and be a better man. He is a detective at the local police agency in Los Angeles, and he has a friend who works in the department. His name is Jack, and Jack is trying to help him become human again, using tanning beds and, eating normal food and being a better man. A bunch of homeless people have been murdered as of late, and Nick is kind of friendly with the homeless people, so he's noticing this. And a pattern has emerged through these killings. However, the pattern deviates when a night watchman is killed at the local museum and a jade goblet is stolen. Nick has the other jade goblet, its hair. Now, there is a legend that if you drink blood out of these jade goblets, you'll become human again. But I believe you need both of them for it to work. So, Nicholas, realizing that it is stolen, gets worried, because the other killings didn't look the same as the one from the museum. The museum, there was a clear bite mark on his neck, no blood, very vampire-y. The killings on the homeless people, blood was drained, I believe, but it was more slashing rather than biting. So, when they realize the jade goblet is missing, they investigate the museum, and that's when Nicholas meets Alice. Alice is very interested, as she is a curator at the museum, but she's also, I believe, part of the team that found the goblet, so she knows much about it. Nicholas grows close to Alice and actually loses control on her, not hurting her, but gets real close. He falls off the wagon. And so while he's dealing with all these killings and trying to solve this crime, he's also trying to hold back from hurting Alice, who he's slowly growing closer to. And since Nick can only work nights, he's given a partner, Don Skanke. Skanke is very sarcastic, very different than Nick, and he can work days. However, Nick and Don are not, like, besties. They don't really like each other very much, so Nick's not very happy about this. Now, while they're investigating this case, it eventually leads to a hospital. Someone who's working at the hospital must be doing this. There has to be a correlation somehow. So Nick sneaks in the back of his own car to get to the hospital. And Don drives it out. However, the man that they are trying to fight cuts the brake line on the car, and he's driving it down a very big hill, and he can't brake, He crashes it into a bunch of stuff, but he's fine. However, Nick was in the car the entire time this was happening, inside the trunk. So when it's brought to, the mechanic, and he's looking at the car, Nick slides out of the trunk and appears in front of John. Not happy, because obviously that's his car. His car is vintage. Not cool. And he tries to apologize, and he's like, I'm so sorry, I don't know what happened. And they get in a little squabble, but they move past it. In the end, it is revealed that there are two killers. There is the one who's killing the homeless people, who works for the hospital. It's revealed that I believe his mother was given blood donated by a homeless person, and I believe it had HIV or some kind of disease, and it killed her. So he took a grudge against the homeless, and he decided to take it into his own hands. However, the museum kill was done by Nicholas's maker, Lacroix. He likes to cause problems for Nicholas, and gets Alice involved. And basically, at the end, the guy who was killing the homeless people is killed by Lacroix. And then Nicholas and Alice are stuck in an apartment that's on fire. And Lacroix basically says and tries to force Nicholas to turn Alice, feed on Alice. And she actually is like, yeah, do it, man. Like, you know how much I could learn by living forever? But Nicholas hates being a vampire. So why would you want to do that? He hesitates, jumps over the fire, and tries to kill Lacroix. Alice gets involved and is actually killed, or presumed to be killed. Then they fight a little bit longer, but Nicholas wins. Lacroix dies, and Nicholas returns the one goblet, because earlier on in the movie, Lacroix breaks it just to be a dick. He returns the goblets and walks off with his bestie Jack. And that is the basic premise of the movie. The first 2 episodes of the TV show follow the same script, so the same thing happens, though scenes are acted a little bit differently, and some things are slightly changed. The movie was written by Barney Cohen and James D. Perriott. As I said earlier, this was originally meant to be the pilot episode of the TV show. However, it was not picked up until 1992. It was picked up by CBS, played as part of its Crime Time After Primetime lineup, and changed its location from Los Angeles to Toronto. And the entire cast was swapped out, aside for one man. Don Skanky, played by John Kapelos, he was played by John Kapelos in the show as well. He is the only one from the original 1989 cast to return. Everyone else, I'm guessing, either was too busy or just didn't want to or whatever. Once it was picked up by CBS, the show transformed from Nick Night to Forever Night. It premiered from May of 1992 to May of 1996 with 3 seasons. The entire cast was swapped aside from John. Nick was played by Durant Wynne Davies. Lacroix was played by Nigel Bennett, a character who was not originally in the Nick Night movie, as far as I remember, was Jeannette, who was played by Deborah Duchesnay. Don Skanky was again played by John Kapelos. Dr. Jack became Dr. Natalie, and Natalie was played by Catherine Disher. Since the TV show was actually picked up and given more episodes, we got more backstory on Nicholas. Now, what's nice is the original pilot was written by the same people who went on to write Forever Night. So it's not like they tried it, it failed, and a different team picked it up. The same writers were involved. So most likely, if Rick Springfield got to continue being Nick, this is where the story would have went. It might have been slightly different, because obviously a few years had passed, they had time to tweak some things, but same writers, so probably similar story. Nicholas de Brabant was born into a noble family sometime around 1200 AD, probably in the country of Brabant, now part of Belgium. He was given the usual training as a knight. Nicholas was sent to Wales to investigate resistance to Norman rule. While he was there, he fell in love with Gwyneth. Now, eventually, his, I wouldn't say ruler, let's say his boss, killed Gwyneth, and blamed Nicholas for it, even though Nicholas wasn't there. Rude. His boss said that he could go on the Holy Crusades instead of probably being executed. So Nicholas did just that. After many years in the Near East, he returned in around 1228, very bitter and just not the same. Eventually, when he returned, he met Jeanette and fell in love, and Jeanette brought him to Lacroix. Lacroix offered him immortal life, and Nicholas didn't really give it time to really think about the consequences of answering this question, and went, yeah, sure. When he is almost near death, he is brought to I would say a purgatory situation, and the people there said that he could choose to go through this door, and it would most likely lead to heaven, afterlife. He would die, but his soul would be saved, or he could damn himself to being a vampire, and he chose vampire. Now, honestly, I don't know why they filmed it this way. I feel like Jeanette could have just turned to Nicholas. I don't know why Lacroix had to be involved, but he did. He turns Nicholas into a vampire, and when Nicholas wakes up, he sees the world with new eyes. The show has a lot of flashbacks in it, which is why we know his backstory at all. The show mostly takes place in modern day. Season 1 takes place in 1992, and by Season 3, obviously, we're in 1996. However, we do travel back in time to many time periods that Nicholas has lived through. Now, if it is to believe, Nicholas was turned at around 28 years old if he was born in 1200 AD, which means he has been a vampire for about, I believe by 1992, 764 years, something like that. But if you add the 28 of his supposed age before this, he's close to 800. So he's old. He's not as old as his maker. His maker, Lacroix, was turned when Pompeii was pummeled by a volcano, and Jeanette was turned by Lacroix. Jeanette was actually a lady of the night, and her life was very destitute and sad, and she was very broken and didn't really have any choices, and so he gave her power, and it kind of went to her head. Now, Nicholas, Jeanette, and Lacroix travel for many, many years and do a lot of bad things, but eventually, Nicholas starts to have a conscience and realizes he doesn't want to be a monster anymore. Eventually, he gets to modern day, where he actually gets, I believe, burned up in a fire or something and ends up on Natalie's table. However, because he is a vampire, he healed. And he wakes up and scares the crap out of Natalie. But instead of Natalie being terrified of Nick, she's intrigued and invested and actually wants to help him. And so they become besties. And she tries everything in her power to make him human again. You know, tanning beds, eating food, doing certain activities, or taking certain drinks. You know, trying to make him human. And there are a few episodes that he gets real close, but he never becomes human again. Nicholas and Natalie do fall in love throughout the show, however, and by season 3, they're basically dating, kind of, but the ending is rushed. And it's rushed because the show actually got canceled, which I did not know until I filmed the last video. And I actually figured that out while I was editing that video, not when I was filming it. So you learn something new every day. Forever Night was actually canceled for the first time after season 1. Sets were taken down, filming had ended, things were over. However, the fans were so obsessed with this show, they actually raised money to save it. So there is quite a gap between season 1 and season 2 because it had been canceled. But they were able to save the show and brought it back for 2 more seasons. However, by season 3, they ran into the same problem and they were canceled. However, they were canceled before the show was actually finished, and so it was actually in trouble of not even getting a real ending. However, fans actually put together another campaign to save the show called Save Our Night, and they raised a bunch of money and fan support to be able to allow the show to have 5 more episodes. So it could have a conclusion rather than just a complete and utter, like, random ending. However, the ending is, I would consider, not good. The show ends in a very abrupt way. I believe that it is, like, Nicholas is discovered and has to leave. And his apartment is covered in sheets, you know, like he's planning to just abandon where he lives. And Natalie begs him to be with her. Now, it is revealed midway through season 3, because Jeanette is somehow human, that if you make love and feed on your partner without killing them, you slowly will become human again. You have to do it a few times. I'm not sure exactly how many times you have to do this, but you have to do it at least a few times, and slowly you will become human, but you have to control yourself. And it seems like vampires are not very good at that in this show. They're, like, very bad at that. Nicholas especially. But if you're able to control yourself while you're doing this, you can become human. And I believe it has to be someone you're in love with. So Natalie was like, let's try. You know, if this is a surefire way, because obviously it was shown by Jeanette that she became human, if it's a surefire way to become human, then we should try. But Nicholas obviously was scared. She said that even if it turned out that he had to turn her to save her life, she would rather spend eternity with him trying to figure out a way to save him than to, you know, give up. And so they have this cute little moment where he's like, I don't know what's going to happen. She's like, it's okay. And he bites her. Now, in Nicholas fashion, he loses control and he takes too much. Now, instead of following her wish and turning her into a vampire, he decided that instead of damning her, he would rather die with her. Which, alright. So it ends with Lacroix standing behind Nicholas with a stake, raising it into the air, and just before it's about to make contact, that's it. So you don't know if Lacroix went through with it or if he didn't. Now, there's a lot of theories online that Lacroix would not bring himself to do this to Nicholas, which I could see it. And so he would have spared Nicholas, and then maybe Natalie would have become a vampire. Maybe Natalie wouldn't have become a vampire. Maybe if he didn't kill Nicholas, Nicholas would have taken it into his own hands. I don't know. But it ends in a way where you don't know what happened. It's just assumed that Lacroix killed him so that him and Natalie could die together, which I feel like was a really shitty ending. Now, I did not know the show had been canceled when this ending was, when I saw it for the first time. I just thought, wow, that's terrible. And now I understand that they were kind of rushed, but I feel like it would have been better for Nicholas to just not bite Natalie and for them to leave together, or for Nicholas to turn her into a vampire. I don't think this ending was a good one. I really don't. Or, you know, even though it wouldn't have made me happy, Nicholas leaves. Him and Natalie maybe have a cute moment where he says goodbye, and then it ends with Natalie in the apartment by herself because he's gone. I would have liked that more, but here we are. Now, even though the show got canceled twice, it was very popular, as seen by the fans saving it twice, which is actually insane that they had that much power. There have been fan campaigns for many shows that have gotten canceled, and usually nothing comes of it. I mean, maybe you get something, or you at least get a thank you guys for trying, but really nothing comes of it. Like, there is no, the show continues. I know there was one for Shadowhunters when Freeform canceled it, and probably many other TV shows, and it never happens. So the fact that the fans of Forever Night were so powerful to be able to bring the show back not once but twice, that's pretty awesome. I wish I was around when they did that, because that's like some powerful stuff. Now, this show had a big impact on people, obviously, and there were 3 books written about Nicholas that came out actually after the show ended. I believe all 3 came out in 97. Actually, you know what? You know what? I'll show you, because I actually own all of these. Give me a second. So as I said, there were 3 books written for Forever Night that came out in 1997. I believe all 3 of these came out in 97. The first one that I found was Forever Night, A Stirring of Dust. I read this one first. I didn't know that it was the first one in the series, but I was like, I love this show. I need these books. And these books all three of them, are not based on like an episode that happened. It's more like stories within Nicholas's life. Kind of like an episode of Forever Night in a book. Then there was Forever Night, Imitations of Morality, written by Susan M. Garrett. Natalie's on the front of this one. Nick's on this one. I like the cover of this one a lot. This one, they look really cool. And the third book is Forever Night. These are Revels. This is the shot of Nicholas just before he drinks the blood of Lacroix. He is bitten and is having that vision where he is given the chance to go into the afterlife and not damn his soul. And he chooses to become a vampire, which is like his biggest regret in his entire life. I also own Forever Night on DVD, all 3 seasons. I love this show. Even though it's a little campy, it's a little cringy, and the ending sucks, I'm a big fan. And so I had to buy all 3 of these books. There were also 2 soundtrack CDs released. One in 1996 and one in 1999. It just has a selection of the score. I don't know if it's every single song that's played throughout the show, but there are soundtrack CDs, which I do not own, but now that I know they exist, I think I need them. Forever Night was nominated for 13 Gemini Awards and won one of them in 1996. It was also nominated for a Golden Reel Award in 1992. It was ranked number 23 on TV Guide's Top Cult Shows Ever in 2004 and stayed on the list until 2007 when it was removed. Now, Forever Night is a classic. It was only on air for 4 years, got canceled twice, saved, well, at least once. The second time they saved it for 5 episodes, but they did bring it back so we got an ending. Even though the ending was not an ending I enjoyed, they still did their very damn best. There was actually people still rooting to see if we could get a season 4, but it never happened. Was Forever Night perfect? No. But it was damn glorious. The original movie is fun. I saw it after I watched the TV show, but I understand, you know, they were trying to shoot for a TV show and it didn't work. However, 3 years later, we got Forever Night. And honestly, don't get me wrong, I do enjoy Rick Springfield's take on Nicholas, but since I watched the TV show first, I love Dron's version a lot more. I just love his acting, and he just looks like Nicholas to me. He's Nicholas. And the show, it's good. It's got some true crime in it and some detective work and some supernatural aspects, not just vampires. I know that there's some other supernatural creatures in the show as well. And he is not the only vampire. Jeanette is a big part of the show, and Lacroix shows up, obviously, in the first 2 episodes, and I think he returns, I don't know if it's in season 1 or 2, and then he becomes like a big part of the show after that. All the actors did a fantastic job, and I was just having a great time. Now, obviously, it's a little silly sometimes when Nicholas has his flashbacks, because he has a lot of them where he just stares off into space, and you get traveled back to whatever time period he wants to. But I think the idea of like having a main case and then having him have flashbacks of something that happens similarly to him or a person who's involved in both or whatever is very interesting, because some shows you don't really get the backstory of the main character as much as I would like. And so in this case, we actually get to see his backstory. All the famous people that he's met, all the people that he may have killed along the way, you know, and his guilt. And his relationship with Lacroix and Jeanette is just a very interesting dynamic. It's kind of toxic, but it's also very fascinating. I don't know, there's something about it. Like, if I were around in the 90s, I would have been with those fans just putting up a sign and be like, save Forever Night, please! If you would like to watch my other video on Forever Night where I talk about the specific scenes that are like copied from the movie and show, that will be in the card and linked below. That video is very dark, just to warn you. Not the themes, just the actual video. I've been thinking of just re-recording it, but when I recorded that video, I did not know that the Rick Springfield, Nick Knight, was supposed to be the pilot for the show, so now I completely understand why they used the same script. Back then, I was like, why would you use the same script? Change it up. Now I understand. Same writers in both projects, same idea. They were trying to, you know, get their show started. Why change the beginning? I get it. I understand. But the show has a special place in my heart. If you have never seen Forever Night, I highly recommend it. Season 1 and 2, I believe, is on Tubi. I don't know why they don't have Season 3. That's rude. There are a few people who have uploaded episodes onto YouTube. I don't know if every single one is on there, but I know there's quite a few. I bought the discs off Amazon. I don't know if they're still available on Amazon, but I highly recommend the show if you've never seen it. If you like detectives and you like vampires, perfect combination. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll be back again next week with another one. Alright guys, see you later.